Welcome back to Haunted by Tapes with the Frog Brothers Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Haunted by Tapes with the Frog Brothers Podcast. My name's Justin. With me, my esteemed colleague, co-host, brother extraordinaire, all-around stoner, good guy, bad guy, which is which, Alec. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Smoke weed every day.
He's living by his motto. He's living his best life.
Yeah.
Well, as best as it can be. This side of the dirt. Top side.
Yeah. For now.
The year is 1974.
Is it?
No, it's 2022. But in the year 1974...
In the year 1974. In the year 1974. Toby Hooper directs The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I saw this movie for the first time when I was like 10 or 11 with Nathan. As many movies, I saw it for the first time that way, and man, I was fucking disturbed.
It's creepy, man. It's got a good vibe, and the pacing's really well done. Like, just when you're starting to get bored with bullshit, they're like, oh, by the way, we're not fucking around.
Yeah, they don't. Once shit starts happening, it's fucking happening, and it's only an hour and 23 minutes.
Yeah, it's easy to get through. If you don't have it or you want to watch it for free, stream it on Pluto with ads. It shows everything.
You may notice a bunch of Batman bullshit. I actually have my Texas Chainsaw DVD over there, and I meant to have it over here for this. But it's the 2003 Pioneer DVD one, and I hear it's a really good version because of the special features that are not included on other editions and things. So I bought that shoveling snow one year in 6th grade, I think, actually, for sure. No, 7th grade. I was shoveling snow during winter, and I made like $60 and made somebody drive me to Best Buy and spent all of it on random shit.
Fuck yeah. And as we prep for a snowstorm this week.
And Texas Chainsaw was one of those things, that edition of it, so...
Hell yeah. That's always nice when you find out you've got like that exclusive edition everybody wants, and like that's the one you just haphazardly bought the first time without knowing shit.
Yeah.
And you're like, God damn, future me thanks younger me. Awesome. Good job, pal.
Like, I liked buying DVDs as a kid, but like, you know, by the time I was 18 and left home, I probably had 30 DVDs maybe or something.
Yeah, which is...
I'm sitting at like almost 900 now, so...
But 30 DVDs in the 90s, early 2000s was crazy, because you got to realize...
Well, I was 18 in 2009 when I like left home, though.
Fucking... Like, when DVDs first came out, they were like $30 each.
Yeah.
Like, you had to be fucking serious about wanting it.
Well, I started buying them a lot when I had my first job, and like, we were hanging out a lot watching random shit, and we would buy random shit. Like, I remember I bought like the Frighteners, the Lost Boys, all around like that time was when I first started buying that shit up, and nice. Fight Club and all that. So,
but this movie really sets the stage. So a little background. So you saw this at a young age. I don't think I saw this till high school at some point in time. Like after watching Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, you know, this one kind of came on that list. I was like, okay, you got to check this one out. And it holds up. It's really fucking good.
It's fucked up, and like the way it's shot, man, you feel hot watching it. Like it just feels warm and like, like you're in Texas and you're just sweating and shit stinks.
I mean, it's essentially a low-budget film, right? There's not a lot. There's basically...
John Larroquette doing the fucking voiceover intro.
Uh-huh.
It's fucking spooky as hell. Like, as a kid, that alone is scary to me.
Yeah, him delivering all that bad and depressing and scary news. You're like, what the fuck is going on here?
Apparently, his payment for this was a joint. That's what he said.
Hell yeah. Well, he did a fucking bang-up job of it, so...
One of the alternate titles they were talking about using for this movie was going to be Head Cheese.
Oh, because they have that whole conversation about it. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a much better title.
They were also going to call it, like, Saturn and Retrograde at one point and shit like that. So, like, this is a much better title.
Fuck yeah. I think you made a franchise out of it. Like, Head Cheese is, like, seems like really, really, like...
Somebody did a short film called Head Cheese, and they, like, used some of the locations from this. I think it was, like, a fan film or something, maybe. But
yeah, I could see somebody doing that, just as, like, a little, you know, nod to the original, so... We get this green van that immediately reminds me slightly...
Well, before the green van, there's like they're digging, right? You hear digging sounds, and it's kind of black. And they, like, fade in and show you, like, these weird flashes of really gruesome-looking shit. And that alone, you're like, holy fuck. And, like, I can't even imagine being in 1974 seeing this for the first time, because there hadn't been this gruesome of looking... I mean, not in mainstream stuff. And this is what... It became popular eventually, so that's... You got to think about it that way. Like,
this was really kind of ahead of its time, right? It's really like the beginning of the slasher genre,
it's
right?
one of the first slashers. This and Black Christmas kind of in the 70s. There's a couple others, like even... I think Scream 4, they mention a movie that, like, it puts you in the point of view of the killer for the first time. It's like Peeping Tom, maybe, is one of them.
Okay.
But, again, I think this was the first one to, like, really do the slasher formula of, like, teenagers getting murdered by someone who's really fucking weird.
Yeah, you get that. And then you also get in that beginning, like, you see that cemetery opening scene, right?
Yeah, and then you see those corpses almost turned into, like, art.
Yes, all over the cemetery.
It's
and like
a very, like, Ed Gein thing, you know.
Well,
like,
that's the whole, like, the loose inspiration for the script was the Ed Gein serial killing murders.
Which also, you know, Hannibal Lecter is also based off of that, and Psycho is based off of that.
Yeah.
The thing about that...
That was just one of the most well-known cases for the time. Like, obviously now, like...
He made lampshades and shit of people, which is why you see that in kind of... And you see that in this. You see, like, humans fucking lampshades and shit. You do see that in this.
Yeah, and they said
later.
he had, like, skeletons and parts of skulls and just different stuff throughout the house. So, like, you see the inspiration of that once you know this.
They used a lot of, like, real blood and animal blood and shit in this movie. It's kind of fucked up and gnarly.
Yeah, shit you wouldn't do now, but it was
I don't
like,
think they didn't kill any animals for it, so that's good. They used roadkill. They used dead animals from a vet's office and shit like that they could get, and from a local slaughterhouse they bought like a bunch of blood, and that's real like cow blood and Leatherface's like fucking thing. It's like real
okay.
stinking animal blood in that Texas heat that they shot in and stuff. It's fucking gnarly, man.
Imagine how much scarier that made the filming of it, though. Like, is someone like portraying that, right? That's,
Yeah. Especially they're talking about the grave digging
yeah, there's
issue.
grave digging going on, and like someone's been digging up the graves and like taking parts of the bodies, and you're like, okay,
It's interesting. You see the dead armadillo on the road, and that's kind of like your transitional shot to where you see the green van, like you were saying.
And immediately, I say the green van because it's almost like got that Scooby-Doo inspiredness, right? You got you got this like ensemble cast, mixed cast, couple guys, couple girls,
Just rolling around in a van,
yeah, young crew, and they're fucking stoners,
basically.
fucking stoner hippies, right? So yeah, that whole group is loosely inspired by Scooby-Doo. You can say it's not, but it's clearly there's.
They pull over on the side of the road, and Franklin's got to take a piss.
They fucking roll him down the hill, man.
He ends up rolling down the hill and rolling all the way down there. Franklin's a hilarious character. Lots of people hate him. I think he's hilarious in this movie. He's
really,
annoying and great.
Yeah, I was going to say, when he's not being really funny, he's really like, Jesus Christ, somebody get rid of this guy. But that's the great thing about him. Like, he makes you smile as much as he pisses you off.
So, yeah, they basically find out they're going to the graveyard to find out if their grandpa's okay. And then I wrote, well, not okay, but if his body's still buried.
Intact. Yeah.
They get there, and then Franklin's still hanging out in the car, and like all the other dudes are like, "Ooh, pretty girl, let's go see about your dead grandpa." And there's this drunk dude laying on the ground, like saying weird cryptic shit to Franklin.
Yeah, that is pretty creepy.
And here's an interesting thing I read about the movie. I never noticed till this viewing. There's like not really a score. There's lots of weird metal clankings and sounds,
Yes.
and it's because they wanted. It's basically the theory of like these characters are hearing metal to make you feel like humans are in a slaughterhouse. And I'm like, holy shit, that's fucking brilliant, and it's creepy and weird as hell.
Yeah, I'd had some notes about the sound design of this because, right, you never hear that music, but you always hear like this unsettling fucking
Like
sound.
weird metal grinding and sliding sounds.
There's the grinding, then you get like the really loud fucking gas generator going on. Like, it feels like you're really there, which is
It's
really
supposed to
works
sound
in this.
like you're in a slaughterhouse, like
Yeah.
because they're about to get slaughtered. They're the product, and they're not even like super clear on it. But like the barbecue they ate earlier was
Oh yeah,
humans.
it's cannibalism for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because later on when you go in there, like you see that, which is great too. Yeah, so you have those drunk guys at the cemetery. They want to check on Grandpa's body. So
I love.
and they
They find out his body hasn't been grave robbed or whatever.
yeah,
But you'll come to find out they picked up the guy who was grave robbing. He's the hitchhiker. You don't find out that right away or anything, but he is great too. He's one of like the fucking standout roles in this movie because he's fucking so weird, dude.
And that
he sells it.
He is great at the beginning. Like, I feel like he's a little undersold at the end just because there's more of an ensemble going on. So
yeah, I mean,
but he really like hypes this thing up. So there's a few other things though they do that really kind of shows you what's going on. So when they're driving along that cattle farm, you basically know there's like a butchery somewhere, right?
Oh yeah, they keep talking about it. He's like, oh, didn't Grandpa used to sell his old cows over here somewhere?
Yeah. And that's the first note I took of the unsettling sound design.
Because then he's talking about, you know how they used to kill those cows? They used to just take the hammers and they used to just smack them. Bam, smack, bam. And they're like, shut the fuck up, Franklin, Jesus.
Yeah, and he's really into it. And then he talks about the little bolt gun that they kill him with.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen it, like they didn't like show anything like that in this, but in the movie It, Chapter 1, when you see the young boy working at the slaughterhouse with his uncle, like you see them using that. So it's basically like bolt fire.
Oh, but I mean, have you not seen No Country for Old Men?
Yeah.
The murderer uses that on people in that one. It's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah,
Javier Bardem with his weird-ass haircut.
So there's some examples of it out there. So, but they're talking about that and really kind of make it how unsettling it is that they used to just fucking bash these things to death.
Yeah, I feel you. Do you know who distributed this movie?
No.
Bryanston Distribution, which was a mafia front.
Fuck yeah, that's badass.
They were laundering money because they illegally made the movie Deep Throat, and they were laundering profits from Deep Throat through Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There was a lawsuit, because they were saying that the movie wasn't making as much as it did. Later, the lawsuit happened, and every actor was given an additional $25,000 from them, and the movie rights went to New Line Cinema.
Nice.
Yep.
So they pick up the hitchhiker, as you mentioned, right? And he's all fucking cracked out and gross looking. He's just nasty.
My brother makes head cheese. It's real good.
Yeah.
Try it. You like it.
You guys ought to come over, try it. You like it. Which makes me think, like, had they just gone there with them, would they have died the same way, or would they have all fucking eaten people?
When he cuts his fucking hand open and shit.
Yeah.
Fucking gnarly, dude. And they're just watching him, and then he gives him his knife back.
Yeah, and then he says, oh, you want to see something? So he shows him all those dead cattle photos.
Yeah.
And then he cuts into his own hand, right? So...
And this is a ludicrous scene. He takes his picture, Franklin's picture, and then he's like wagging it around or whatever.
$2.
$2. It's a good picture. You can pay me now.
And he's like, give him his fucking picture back. No, dude. And then he fucking pulls out some foil, presumably what's like gunpowder or something.
Yeah, a very small amount of gunpowder, and fucking burns the photo up.
Yeah.
But you know how bad a fucking instant photo burning would it smell because all the chemicals and that shit?
Yeah. And then they start freaking out, and he grabs Franklin by the arm and pulls out a straight razor from him.
Fucking, yeah.
Slices his arm.
Him.
That shit's fucked up. And they kick his ass out, and he starts kicking the van. I like how he wipes his blood all over the van when they're driving away.
On that door, and then they get into reading the horoscopes, and the horoscope's like eerily accurate to exactly what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's well written. Like
Saturn and retrograde shit.
Yeah.
They go to the gas station.
And the gas station attendant, right? So here's one thing that we don't ever circle back to, which is more just a curiosity than anything. The guy that's washing the windows is clearly deranged too, but we never see him again. Because he's the one washing down the windows. And, you know, like, yeah, we're out of gas. There'll be a supply. You know, there'll be some more later.
The cook?
The cook.
That's who that is.
Yep, we see him introduced there, so.
Dan, that's very interesting. Again, everybody says this is a miserable shooting experience because of the heat, really, and much of the stuff in the house later is worse than what we'll get. We'll get to the really bad stuff, but
offers them barbecue while they wait, right? So that's when they have that
we'll get some barbecue. I got us some barbecue.
Watching a fucking movie like this will make a motherfucker paranoid. Like, if you're ever on a road trip, like through Texas, you're like, I'm just going to start carrying gas cans with me, like in the trunk, because fuck this. I'm never going to have, this is never going to happen.
And when you live in Arizona, it's the same thing with Hills Have Eyes. You're like, I can never be driving through the desert without gas and spare tires and shit and weapons
exactly.
and food.
fucking worst case scenario as you're driving around anywhere there.
Oh, Jesus.
Because there's a lot of empty road in Texas for shit like this to go down.
And then they're asking him about the house and shit.
Yeah, and Franklin contemplates cutting himself as he's fucking around with that knife.
Yeah, he's like,
He's
it
obsessed
just takes
with that
something
knife.
to do that to yourself, don't it?
Yeah.
He's just a weird character for sure.
And Sally's the last one out of the van and sees the blood on the fucking side of the van. And
Supposedly Sally's in the new movie.
Really?
Because they're doing they're actually bringing Sally and Leatherface back. There was a new trailer, I think, released today for the sequel to this that's coming out this week. Haven't watched it yet. I'm going to need to pick up one of those Netflix cards from Walmart or something.
So is this one of those...
It's ignoring everything except this movie that we just watched.
But what's the time gap?
He's old.
Oh.
He's
Leatherface.
like 60-year-old Leatherface or whatever.
Okay, I can dig it.
It'll be interesting. I mean, we'll see.
So, obviously they arrive at Franklin's house, and that's kind of when they first explain to you that Sally is actually Franklin's sister, right? Because they're not big on introducing names at first, right?
They let it kind of flow naturally.
Yeah, exactly. You find
But
out
it's one of those things where I never, until recently, have not paid much attention to characters' names in movies like slasher movies, because I'm just like,
Yeah.
everybody fucking dies, who gives a fuck?
Pam and Kirk wind up going to look for the little
The water hole.
the water hole that's fucking since dried up.
I love Franklin getting in the house, though, and he like can't get around, and we'll just leave Franklin out here. And he goes, and he's doing
Yeah.
that. I love that shit. It's hilarious to me.
Well, it just shows like he's very fascinated by this, but like his sense of
He's just pissed that everybody has somebody, and he's just hard to like exist being in the wheelchair in these scenarios where they're like trying to explore this old fucking house, and he can't get around and shit.
yeah, and even like they make it a point to say that his grandpa used to carry him down to the old watering hole.
Yeah.
And he can't get down there, and yeah, you see his frustration kind of taking off, which for a first viewing kind of sets it up as like, is he the one that loses his fucking mind? Is this where it goes? But it's clearly like just a misdirection for a fair amount of that.
They find the creepy ass house, which has been relocated and turned into like a restaurant. They like moved that house. It's not in that field anymore, apparently.
Oh, really? Nice.
Um,
Which is pretty cool because they go there and they're looking to barter for gas.
man, this scene, for the first time watching this, because it's just kind of like nothing crazy's happened yet, and it fucking just comes out of fucking nowhere. Hammer to this motherfucker's head, dragged back there, and the door slams.
And everything we know, like, because this set up the genre so well, like, if you've been around a gas generator or a lawnmower, right, a small electric engine or a small engine like that's loud.
Yeah.
And that's how it is in the sound design. Like, you can fucking barely hear them talking over there. It's distracting to the point where, like, you feel like you're in that moment. Yeah. So as they're looking around, like, you're expecting, like, a jump scare now if you've seen a lot of slasher. But this is before any of that, right?
Yeah.
So you got to take that in mind. And it really sets it up so when it finally gets that kill. And even just looking in that house.
Well, the way they do the score, too, because it's not a real score, it's mostly metal sliding and scaling, and there is none of that during the generator. So it's not like a normal movie, because sometimes movies are...
Intentionally,
they're very telling if you're paying attention to the score as opposed to just feeling the movie and vibe. Like if you're into filmmaking and stuff, you probably are paying attention a little more to the score and stuff, and especially in slashers where you know when they're building up to something or when they're not, because there'll be music and music and music and music and music, and then it'll slowly get quiet for a second, and that's when your scare is going to come.
Yeah, or
this doesn't have that. It's just generator sound, and then out of nowhere, poof, motherfucker's dead, and then you're like, whoa, shit, who the fuck is this guy?
But they're knocking on that fucking front door, right? And he enters that house, and he hears the pig sounds in there, too.
Oh, yeah, that's supposed to be like Leatherface making sounds to make him think, like, what the fuck's going on back here?
Yeah, it's like luring him in, and it works, too, because you're like, what the fuck is that? Yeah, he hits him in the head with that mallet or hammer, whatever it is, and then fucking Pam goes in after him.
Sledgehammer, yeah, man.
And she finds out all the creepy shit, too, like, and...
The bone room and shit?
Yeah, so you see all those feathers that are laying around, the bones, the dried corpses...
Which reminds me of Lost Boys, obviously, and they even reference this in Lost Boys when they bring it up.
Yeah. That human skeleton sitting in the chair in that room is fucking unsettling. There's all those other bones just dangling around.
Yeah.
And then fucking Pam, like, dry heaves, and I think she was legit dry heaving there. Like, it doesn't look like she's faking it, and based off, like, the heat in the Texas heat and everything, like that's probably fucking just legit real.
Yeah.
Like,
Leatherface wore one shirt. Gunnar Hansen was the actor. He wore one shirt through the entire filming, and they never washed it. They couldn't because of the dye. So that motherfucker was smelling like a bitch. They said like it was just fucking putrid.
oh, and if
Everybody was like, "Get the
chasing
fuck
and
away
stuff.
from me when they're done filming."
Yeah. So
Pam enters. Yeah, she guns into the bone room. And then she's caught.
fucking throws her on that fucking meat hook.
Yeah, he does.
So disturbing because she's still clearly alive.
Oh yeah.
And then she fucking watches Kirk get hacked up with that fucking chainsaw. And that is fucking insane.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason people are fucking frightened by this movie because it was the first time.
And like I said, this has got to be stinky. That's real animal blood in that room that you see smeared on the walls.
And I want to say that I read that this was the first movie that they actually, like, killed people with power tools.
Yeah, probably.
So, like, not like a mob-style movie where you might expect a torture scene like that, but, like, legit, like, okay, well, this is how... And, like, think about how
Slumber Party Massacre, the guy uses a power drill, so it's like, yeah, that's later on.
And you think about how many movies have you seen where somebody gets fucking hacked apart with a chainsaw? Freaky, right? And then, like, you go back to see
He says he got the idea because he was in, like, the Christmas of 72, he was out Christmas shopping, Toby Hooper, and was, like, in the hardware section. He was like, man, I really wish I could get through this crowd really quick, and was, like, eyeballing the chainsaws.
Oh, goddamn.
And he was like, huh, interesting movie.
Yeah.
And it went from there.
Fucking terrifying.
Where
The other
are we?
piece we forgot that's just so unsettling, too, is when that tooth falls off the fucking front porch.
Oh, yeah.
Before he goes inside, you're like, what the fuck?
What is that?
And you can tell because there's like a filling in that tooth. So it's clearly a human tooth. But carry on. So then after that fucking brutal scene, right, then we jump back to Jerry and Sally.
Yeah, Franklin
And
is,
they're-
like, still fucking worried as fuck, and...
And they're taunting him, man. Like, that hitchhiker's going to come down here and fucking kill you. He wants to kill you.
Yeah. So Jerry's like, well, I guess I gotta go looking for those two. You should stay here. And,
I love it when they get impatient waiting, right? You know, it's Franklin and Sally sitting there waiting, and Sally's honking the horn at one point, and then Franklin rolls over to honk the horn, and he's like, they took the keys! Fucking loses his mind, because you're like, what kind of asshole takes the fucking keys?
Yep.
Because they're not out of gas at this point, right? But the keys are gone, so that's...
Jerry finds the house, kind of starts wandering around in just like everyone else, is in the back. The freezer starts shaking. He walks over to it, flips the motherfucker open as quick as he can, and what does pops out but Pam's shaking, sort of barely alive still corpse.
Yeah, and that's
pretty much
terrifying.
dead,
Yeah.
but, like, still barely there,
That,
you know?
like, last breath of fucking help me.
And then Leatherface comes in and smacks him with a hammer. So far, no chainsaw deaths.
Yeah. Yeah, he's skull smashed by Leatherface, which is crazy. And
Yeah.
Then it turns to night, right? So Franklin's wanting to get help at the gas station.
Yeah.
And Sally's like, no, fuck it, we're waiting. Took the keys with him, right? That's a whole big piece.
Yeah.
'Cause
They
otherwise-
eventually decide to fucking go after him because what the fuck else are we going to do?
Yeah, and Franklin's like, I'm not fucking sitting around here by myself. He's like, I'll roll my ass over there with you. And so he does.
Yeah. And this is another one of those good scares that, like, just comes out of nowhere because you're just kind of like, all right, they're walking, they're going to get to the house like everybody else and then see what's going to happen.
Yes.
And out of nowhere, Leatherface just and just fucking kills the shit out of Franklin.
Franklin, too, like, and it's like right in his belly. It's like fucking terrifying because, like, that dude has no fucking line of defense at all.
Nope. And it's fucking over with.
Yeah.
And then he hacks him up for a minute before
Fucking
going after
destroyed.
Sally.
And that's one of the scariest moments in the film was that fucking reveal and death scene because,
Yeah.
like you said, you think they're all just going to make it to this farmhouse because everyone else has at this point.
And apparently she has a lot of real blood on her throughout this scene because of running through the forest and falling and shit like that. And
Yeah, it's all real, like real fucking body damage from doing that. Yeah, she runs through the trees and brush. She's like literally fucking crawling under brush to get away. And
he's still
really-
wearing his first of 3 masks at this point, which is his killing mask, as they call it.
Uh-huh.
He has 2 little costume changes later, which I really like. Anyway, she eventually runs and finds... Is it that house that she runs into?
Yeah,
Or different? Yeah.
No, she runs right into the farmhouse.
And then runs up into the attic. and finds Grandpa and Grandma. And they both look dead at this point. Grandma's dead for sure. Grandpa,
yeah.
You're like, oh, I don't know, but he looks dead for sure, too.
Yeah, I mean, they look mummified.
Little does you know he's not dead, but...
Yeah, that was a good scare, too, like realizing later on, too.
They look gruesome as fuck, man.
Upstairs, when he comes down later and is alive, it's way less impressive, but upstairs, like that first initial scene, because like they look mummified. They look like they fucking died in those chairs up there, and instead of rotting away, it was so hot, they just, all the moisture evaporated. But then
I can think of 7 good uses of a cadaver today.
he saws that fucking front door open, which is a funny line later.
Yeah.
Because he just fucking destroys it.
Well, also, she kind of scares him when he does that.
Yeah.
I love that. And then she's running outside again, basically like, fuck this.
Well, she jumps out that fucking window, and she's back out there running, which is awesome. She knocks herself out on the limb of that tree almost, and fucking barely escapes, which so many other slasher movies don't do.
Gunnar Hansen did knock himself out because he was wearing heels for like some of these scenes, so he like hit him wearing the mask. He hit himself on the fucking door frame one time carrying someone else.
Oh,
and just fucking knocked himself out.
That's crazy. But that works so well because,
well, eventually she runs into the barbecue guy.
Yeah, she runs into the gas station. Yeah, the cook.
And
he's still cooking, and then obviously they're still talking about the stuff on the radio. I love how they circle back to that. Like, they do a really good job at the continuity here, which I appreciate when they do that, especially on a low-budget thing.
And then eventually he's beating the shit out of her.
With a broom, of all things, too, which is funny, but if you think about it, like, she's fucking on, like, coasting on fumes, right? You haven't really seen him eat anything besides people earlier.
Yeah.
And she's fucking running for her life. She thinks she's safe, so she, like, lets her guard down, like, emotionally starts dumping that, like, hey, you're okay, and then, oh, fuck.
Yeah, and apparently he really beat the shit out of her here. Like, they had to keep... The takes weren't looking real enough, so, like, they got to the point where she left that scene with fucking lots of bruises and shit.
Whole other style of filmmaking now than then.
Yeah. Well, there's some things you'll hear later that you're going to be like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
really?
Some of the stuff that happened in this is the reason why there's like lots of rules and laws and shit in place. But yeah, but
this is where they go. He knocks her out, takes her back to the house, and Leatherface is now in an old woman mask with gray hair and an apron.
Yes, and this is like a very iconic one. I think this is what a lot of people think of when they see.
It's not this one. It's the one after this. But this one is like this one's the shortest duration because it's an old woman and it's basically him being domestic. Like, it's hilarious.
Yeah, so...
And you have Grandpa down there. It's Grandpa! Grandpa's played by a 20-year-old in makeup.
Okay.
Once they put the makeup on him, he refused to do it again, so they shot all of his scenes when he had it on the first time. And it was like over 100 degrees out. All of the meat and shit was real. There was real blood in the scenes, all spoiling, and they didn't replace it for days.
That's fucked up.
They said they would go out and puke and then come back in and do their takes. Like, it's fucking wrong, man.
Yeah, there's so much, like, unreal shit there. Like, now it would just never fucking happen. But you can't forget, though, as they're pulling up, so he's got her tied up and gagged up, and then he's fucking hitting her the whole ride over there. He's still decking on her. And then the hitchhiker we see in the fucking... coming up the driveway as he's driving up, and he gets out of the car and starts fucking beating his ass.
Yeah.
Like, this dude's nuttier than squirrel shit. And then we find out for sure that Leatherface is the hitchhiker's brother, and the cook, we never really find out who he is.
Yeah, you kind of assume that they're all brothers.
He's either the dad or the brother.
Yeah, nobody knows if Grandpa is actually the grandpa of those characters or what.
Yeah, they just call him Grandpa, yeah, so.
The cook is in Texas Chainsaw 2. So is Leatherface, obviously. Not the hitchhiker, because he's fucking killed.
Hitchhiker ties Sally to the chair. They bring Grandpa downstairs. They fucking... What?
I have to interrupt you, because this is what I'm talking about right here. They had a prop knife where they're supposed to cut her finger.
Uh-huh.
And it's supposed to... squirt some blood out as it runs. They kept having problems with it until Gunnar Hansen decided, fuck this, I'm really going to cut this bitch.
Oh, wow. So that's real?
He cuts her, and he really drank her blood because neither of them knew, basically.
What the fuck was going on?
Until her finger was pulled back, and she knew it was happening, obviously, then. But the other guy didn't even know till years later, he said. And I'm like, holy fuck.
Well, with all the blood and other shit around there, yeah, who
That
knew?
guy really drank that bitch's blood.
Well,
and later he said he thought it was erotic that he drank her blood. So,
Well, that's fucked up.
yeah.
Wow.
Boner time.
Yeah, so Grandpa's, like, really creepy there, and he's, like, fucking barely alive. Which, she passes out from that cut after having her blood drained.
I wrote, the cook really beat her up, too. And I look how Cook looks.
Oh, yeah.
The cock really beat her up, too.
Well, that's a different movie.
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw Gangbang, I think is what that one's called. So she wakes up later after she passes out, and all those motherfuckers are in there taunting her. And then they're even fighting amongst each other. You're just a cook. Basically telling him, like, you can't take the pleasure in killing. Says he can't take pleasure in killing. He just likes doing the cooking.
Yeah. They try to get Grandpa to kill her. And this is anxiety driving to watch this because, again, this is a real hammer. And she got hit with it a couple times. Like, on accident and almost, like, knocked out and shit. And I'm like, man, you could have actually killed this poor woman during just filming your shitty hammer scene.
Yeah, and, like, they keep dropping it, right? Grandpa doesn't have
That's
the
why,
strength
like, when I was knowing this, watching it, you're like, oh, shit.
It's fucking intense. And that's why it fucking feels so scary, too.
I said, it's like borderline snuff. Because
Yeah.
she said even while they were shooting this, she was like, am I in a snuff film? Am I going to die? Like, for a minute, she felt that way.
I'm fucking sure. She had every fucking right to feel that way. She finally escapes, and she jumps out a window.
Done by a stunt person, but then they did a pickup shot of her in glass, and she ended up cut up with fucking that,
Sure,
too.
yeah, because they weren't using sugar glass.
So more real blood. And here's where he's switched over during their actual dinner after she wakes up. He's in his more iconic outfit, the Pretty Woman, where it's a mask with makeup and like a pantsuit, basically.
Yeah.
I love that. She runs out there. It's dawn. She's running to the road.
Yep, she's running.
Hitchhiker's kind of running around her, but he knows Leatherface is out there, so he's not really trying to stop her. He's just having fun.
He's just kind of taunting her, yeah. And then his fucking death is totally unexpected.
But it's so fucking brutal, too.
It is, yes.
It works. It looks like he really got ran over by that fucking truck.
It's like very fucking Pet Cemetery, right? I feel like in Pet Cemetery, when they're like, you know what's really fucking cool? Running a motherfucker over with the truck unexpectedly. It's even more terrifying when it's a child, but to have that asshole fucking ran over, and then the guy, the driver too, right? Because he pulls over and he's fucking traumatized by it, right?
Yeah.
And he's one of those characters too. You're like, are we going to see him again in this new one?
I mean,
I doubt it, but the fact is, like, we don't see his fate. I mean, we see what's her name.
well, yeah, we see that
Sally.
she gets in the back of the pickup truck, and then he's just kind of forgotten.
Yeah, he
And
ran off.
Leatherface doesn't even try to look for him anymore. He's just swinging around, which, by the way, after she gets in that truck and he's swinging around, that's a beautiful fucking shot. Like the sun and sunlight and
The sunrise coming up on that, yeah.
it's art. It's fucking art, man.
Fucking going nuts, though, as that happens, right? So he's just swinging that thing like a maniac.
At the time, this was one of the most successful independent films ever. I think the most until something else surpassed it in 78 or 80. What was it? Halloween. That's what it was. Halloween surpassed. But
For good reason.
man, this shit is an incredible movie. I won't say I'm super excited for the new one. I need to watch that new trailer for it. The thing about the Texas Chainsaw movies, I really like the second one. It's the Gremlins 2 of Texas Chainsaw because it's kind of like Tobe Hooper did return to direct it, and he did some wacky shit with it. Dennis Hopper's in it. I highly recommend seeing that if you haven't. It came out in like 86, I want to say.
Yeah, it was 12 years later, but yeah, it was one of those things where all the other movies were getting sequels after sequels, and I think they just were like, fuck it, let's do it.
And then they did like Texas Chainsaw 3.
They're kind of scattered, though. They're not like a lot of other franchises where they're really...
Well, like the first 4 that came out were all connected, the same storyline. And then they did the remake. Mm-hmm. And then the remake had a prequel. So that's that storyline. That's Texas Chainsaw, and I think Texas Chainsaw The Beginning.
New Beginning.
And then Texas Chainsaw 3D, which was a sequel only to the first one. And then that one had a prequel. So it was a prequel to this one, but that was in the same line with that other one. So that's already 3 plot lines, and then now we're getting another one, which they already did Leatherface in 2017, which that's one of the ones I haven't seen, so. But like Texas Chainsaw 3D, actually pretty fucking good, man.
Well, when you do that many, you're bound to have something that like hits better than others, right?
Yeah.
Because you're never going to duplicate the original, because the original is so terrifying, partly because those performances are real life, right?
Yeah.
That's the one thing you can kind of see through this movie, and you can see the low-budget quality of it, which works in its favor. Like, it still holds up.
And
it's
this new one's
shot well.
this new one's doing that fucking trending thing where they just name the movie again.
Yeah.
But
so
it's a sequel to only the original. Like, okay, we get it. I mean, Scream just did that, making fun of it. So I feel like now nobody else should be doing it because Scream is calling you out on your shit.
Who knows where they're at in production and just hitting the market first, though, for that
Right.
shit, too. I would say the interesting piece about all that, though, is, they've already done it before for this franchise. They're not afraid to do it again. And, same thing with Halloween. They've done enough. You're like, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the current plot line, Laurie Strode's not his sister, so... that's the whole thing. Like, depending on what movie you're watching, they're siblings or not.
Yeah, it's very drastically different.
It's very interesting stuff. Horror movies are fascinating.
Just the way they do the sequels, right? And I get it to some point. Once you make enough of these, you're like, fuck, do I have to really follow all those sequels? Really, because you'd have to watch them all to write them. Like, you couldn't just... And...
I don't know,
It wouldn't
it's
be
just
that
funny.
difficult to do if you're a film writer, if that's your thing. But I don't know. At the same time, they're just like, yeah, we'll just do a follow up to this. Pretend nothing else happened.
Well, let us know what you think of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and let us know if you're excited to see the new one. What are your thoughts on that one?
We'll definitely be reviewing it when it comes out and talk a little bit about it, see how it kind of holds up, and see if it's a worthy sequel.
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed I won't be able to see it in a theater. I did see the remake in a theater when it came out, and I was 12 when that came out.
Nice.
So I saw that in a theater, and that fucking was horrifying, because that's a pretty loud and gruesome movie.
What's the release on this? It's not getting a limited release at all?
Netflix.
Oh, fuck.
It's a Netflix movie. Yep.
If Netflix is smart, they'd find a way to allow people to stream some of these in theaters, because, like, the budgets are not any fucking different for a lot of their content.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. But like I said, just let us know what you guys thought of that one, too. We will be back next week. Bye. Oops. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Frog Brothers Podcast. We'd greatly appreciate it if you could like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. And if you're listening on the audio feed on Spotify or Apple or Twitcher or wherever you listen, tell your friends and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube at youtube.com/thefrogbros. Hit us up on Instagram at Frog Bros Podcast, on Twitter at bros_frog, on TikTok at Frog Bros Podcast, and follow us on Facebook. Join our Facebook group Frog Bros Video by searching just that, Frog Bros Video. Hit request to join and you'll be approved. We have shirts available. The link is in our Instagram bio and below in the description. And you can find stickers on Etsy at Frog Bros, all one word. Additionally, if you'd like to give us a call and leave a voicemail soon, our Patreon will be live and we'll be posting monthly responses and reactions to the voicemails. Dial 816-832-5388.